2 months ago, while interviewing British NFL fans about how they discovered American football, I found Iestyn. It took me 21 seconds to realize that he's not the average fan from overseas.
And then your son, are you a Bucs fan?
So I got into American football at college level first. So I fell in love with Baker Mayfield. The whole energy, the way he plays ball, the walk-on story. He just loves ball. Like, I think there's no that the way that he plays and the way that he embraces the physicality of the game in the court.
So this time, I'm asking him all the hard questions. Who had the last dominant defense in the NFL? Why Matthew Stafford is the MVP and a Hall of Famer? And much, much more.
So, welcome everyone. We're here in the UK again, London, England. And I'm here with the biggest ball knower of all time. I'm not even talking about UK, in the world. Here with Iestyn Withers. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, good, man. Any opportunity to talk ball, I'm not going to miss it, you know?
Yes, sir, man. So I got to give you guys like a little backstory. So we're doing interviews in London at the London UK game. Browns and what was the team? Browns. What was the team?
Vikings.
Browns Vikings. Yeah. So we're at the Browns Vikings game. You know, Joe Flacco versus Carson Wentz. Not really Joe Flacco, but you know, I gotta let Joe Flacco know. Then we interview Iestyn. And man, it was like a trip down memory lane. Like, it was so refreshing, like getting a ball knower. It was like him and his dad. They were talking about John Riggins, talking about Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma, how he became a fan from there. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. So it was so good. But for the people that haven't seen, I want you to kind of refresh. How did you get into the game of the NFL from a fan from the UK?
Okay, yeah. So as I said, when I first met you, first time was through a friend at school. So it'd been like 2006, 2007, 2008, that kind of era. He was a Giants fan. So he got me to watch the Super Bowl. Fell in love with Jeremy Shockey. Hair flowing. I realised I've also got a soft spot for tight ends at the same time. I loved it, and he was such a big fan that then I got invested into the game, talking to him afterwards. He played fantasy football, not in the traditional American way. So it's more like the UK version of fantasy football, where it was like each player gets a monetary value and you have to build a squad up to a certain amount. So the other teams would have the same players that you have effectively. So I played that for a few years, and that's sort of how I got into football initially. Then obviously Madden games and stuff like that. Then I sort of stopped watching it because there's only so much time in the day. I love pro wrestling as well, and I played rugby, so I just ran out of time to watch it at the end of the day. Then started getting back into college games. So ESPN was on our Sky Sports package at home, so I started getting to watch a few different college games. And then I watched a Texas Tech game, and I saw this undersized looking white quarterback balling out, just didn't take no shit effectively. And I thought, oh, I like him. So I watched as much Texas Tech sort of footage on YouTube as I could. Found out it was Baker Mayfield, found out he was a walk-on, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's my guy. That's an underdog I can root for. And then sort of just got stuck into college ball from there. So really got into Boise State because of the novelty of the blue turf, which isn't that novelty actually in the States. Of course, you have different coloured turf like Coastal Carolina as well. But in the UK, it's just predominantly grass for all sports. Particularly at that point, it was grass. So that novelty got me into that. And then Baker sat out and went to Oklahoma. And then from there, I was just full on the Baker Mayfield ride. Watched as much college ball as I could, so as much Oklahoma as I could, but also tried to dip into other games. And then started getting into that sort of the NFL's draft side of things, knowing that Baker was going to be in the draft and he was potentially going to go one. Slowly worked out I was going to have to be a Browns fan, which wasn't particularly exciting, particularly with the quarterback history of the Browns. But then sort of really got behind the Browns. I thought the underdog story of the Browns with Baker fitted perfectly. And then Freddie Kitchens became the full-time coach. It went a bit downhill, but then Baker balled out again, got the playoff win, and I thought, that's it, I'm probably a Browns fan for life now. And then the Deshaun Watson stuff happened, and I wasn't too fussed about Mayfield being moved on if the team felt they had a better quarterback, but I couldn't deal with the Deshaun Watson allegations, and the fact that it was like a game-breaking contract they were offering him as well whilst all that was going on. I thought morally and ethically that had a bit of a grey area. So I thought I'll follow Baker. Ended up going to the Panthers. I struggled to really get invested in the Panthers, but watched it. Then went to the Rams, and it was such a short space of time, but you could see that he was feeling back to himself. If you could see sort of college Baker in what he was doing. And then he went to the Bucs, and it was on a prove-it deal, but I kind of had a feeling that he's very Tampa in the way that he holds himself. I thought this could be a good fit, and now it's to the point where obviously he's been there for a few years, he's balled out, and I'm now as much a Bucks fan as I am a Baker fan, become a USF fan, so I've gone full on Tampa. But yeah, so that's sort of how I got into it, and then just Baker's the one that made me really explore the game. And being a UK fan, you're not surrounded by football, so you have to go and source out football, whether it's podcasts, whether it's audiobooks, whether it's YouTube. So I just spent a lot of time doing that, and I'm sure we can get into that as we go on. But yeah, that's sort of the story that got me up to this point, and apparently I've acquired a lot of knowledge and held on to it over time, and hopefully I'll be able to sort of give some insight into that as we get on.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy story. So really, Baker Mayfield really put you onto the whole National Football League.
Yeah, I think if it hadn't been for Baker, like there's a lot of college players I've loved that haven't done anything in the NFL. So I think I would have kept watching college, but falling in love with someone who then went on to be quite a big part of the NFL, I think that got me into watching NFL more regularly, and I wouldn't necessarily have done that before. So now I'm kind of in between the two. Well, I'll always watch the Bucks game at the weekend, and if it's a later game, I'll watch one of the earlier windows. But I still watch as much college as I can on the Saturday as well, because that's, I think, where I really fell in love with the sport, the offensive side of things. I mean, I've learned to appreciate defense now, but there's not really much that can replace like a 60 to 50 point game where it's just like all entertaining from start to finish. But yeah, sort of Baker officially got me properly into the NFL, and then got me into the NFL draft, and pretty much ruined my weekends for my partner.
I can't even imagine too, because like it's bad to watch 7 hours of American football in America. I can't even imagine doing that in the UK when the hours can get tough.
Yeah, the early morning ones are tough, particularly because I mean I work full time, like 9 to 5 in the week, so sometimes I'm up till sort of 4 a.m. watching games on the Monday morning. But if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. Thankfully, yeah, loving pro wrestling growing up, I'm quite used to doing that. When it came to the pay-per-views, they were finishing at 3, 4 in the morning as well, so I'm just become quite accustomed to it. But yeah, it does affect your sleeping pattern, and then as soon as that's finished, you're waiting for the podcast to come through to review all the games, and it's just never ending, to be honest.
Okay. And I remember like we interviewed your dad as well, and he was like a really, really big fan. So he started watching like in the 80s, right, with John Riggins?
Yeah, so he watched it when it was on sort of terrestrial British TV. So he loved the Packers because at that time the Packers were great. And being a Welshman, there wasn't a lot of like Welsh sport to celebrate that was great at the time. So I think he sought out being a bit of a glory hunter, particularly with us both being sort of Cardiff City football fans. Again, not great eras. So he glory hunted, but he's been a Packers fan ever since. He sort of dipped in and out of the game. And then when I started to really get into it, I bought him a Charles Woodson jersey for Christmas. And that kind of initiated it. Was almost that catalyst for him to get back into the game. And now he listens to like 10 hours of podcasts a week on it. Some of it to do with betting, some of it to do with the game. He'll always ask me and one of our friends, Connor, just a little name drop because he'll watch this. We went to watch another one of the London games together, and we have a Facebook chat that we chat about NFL all week long, effectively. And it's been nice to have people that really know the game, and then been even more special for me to be able to do it with my dad. So I've been to a few different London games now, and it's a different opportunity. Like we watched a lot of rugby games together growing up, watching football, but this is like our thing in a way, and it's like we were already close, but it adds another sort of string to the bow in terms of bringing us closer together.
100%. And then we saw him with that Charles Woodson jersey. That's to say, so that's the one that you got for Christmas.
Yeah, and then since then I think I bought him like a Packers hoodie, a Packers fleece. He's got the really thermal Packers woolly hat, just like your one.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's fully invested now.
That's perfect. And like I like how he was like, you know, you had the Redskins that were doing really good, and then you had like the Niners in the 80s, but he's like, no, I'm gonna stay firm, and I'm gonna choose 1980s Packers with like Don Majkowski, before Favre, before Rodgers. No, I'm gonna choose the Packers, and it's paying off, you know. There's a lot of winning.
Obviously, the way the British covered the sport back in the day, it was a lot of like historical stuff, trying to introduce the sport in a way to British audiences, and it's obviously a pretty good level of history to the Packers and what Lombardi's done there. So I think it was easy for him to jump on board. But yeah, to his credit, when he picks a team, he picks a team. So he's stuck by that, but he has started to try and pick an AFC team alongside it as well. And
really,
I think he's got a Mark Andrews jersey. He's a big Mark Andrews fan, but he also got a Brian Thomas Jr. jersey before it kind of went a little bit downhill.
yeah.
But with the Jags being like almost the British team nowadays, where traditionally it was sort of Bears, Dolphins, And then the next generation, sort of Pats and Seahawks from sort of that Super Bowl era, he's going to pick a team at the same time. But I think Packers will always be sort of the one that holds his heart. But yeah, he's got a great amount of knowledge from sort of the 80s, 90s that he tries to talk to me about, and then I try and help him understand some of the more sort of modern stuff. And then we both have a real sort of nerdy like for kicking. So when I played in the UK, I originally was going to be a tight end, but from my rugby career, I had too many concussions. So I was like, I can't really do contact. So I became a punter, and now I think punting's like the best thing in the world.
Really?
Because the way that it can change a game, it's not really valued. But he understands that value in the territory game. So that's another thing that we've been able to bond over, sort of understanding that there's more to the game than maybe like the casual fan sees. So yeah, it's just been something that we both like really engrossed sort of our lives into and got that shared passion for.
Who do you think is like the greatest punter of all time?
I mean, the easy answer is going to be like McAfee, but it's not. I mean, I would put AJ Cole up there with anyone at the moment. I think when you watch him, he's so consistent. Obviously, there needs to be more. But in terms of like quality, and you're seeing the same with kickers, the modern era, I think everyone is just that much better. And from the kicking side, obviously, they're getting the game balls earlier, and you're seeing the distance they're able to now kick. So I think punting's the same thing. It's an art form. We're seeing a lot of that. The Aussie guys come across in the college game, which I think is only going to come to the NFL more and more after that. We're seeing some of the Irish guys come through, but yeah, I'd put AJ Cole up there with anyone in terms of when you watch him hit it right, the ability to drop it wherever he wants, I think. And there's a few guys in the league doing it, but I don't think anyone does it better at the moment.
Dang. What about Ray Guy, though? He's a Hall of Famer.
Is a Hall of Famer, but you got to also stick to the guys you're watching on a regular basis.
True.
So I've watched like Ray Guy footage, but
the one-hand catch he had in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
That was insane.
But it's all about the ball coming off the boot ultimately.
True that.
And I think, there's a lot of guys that have done it supremely well, and I could sit here and name punters, but that's not what the audience necessarily wants.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think Ray Guy's obviously legendary, but I think AJ Cole is one of those ones up there. And then McAfee, for what he's done for even the brand of punting, has to be held up fairly high as well. And he brought a swagger to it, and actually I really liked Marquette King for a bit. We just dropped it off, but like that boy had a bomb on him as well.
Yeah, I love Marquette King, man. 2016 Marquette King, he would like pin you in the one, and then he would do some crazy dance. And I remember like being a kid on Vine, like he took over the whole app. Just him, Odell, all them. Yeah.
Punters are people too, ultimately. And yeah, he just couldn't keep that consistency, unfortunately. But that was the kind of another guy bringing like personality to the role, and it not just being a bit part thing. And I think the more that happens, the better. And I think you see it sometimes with kickers now. They do have a little bit more sort of panache to them, a bit more personality.
Yeah. Like Tucker, man, he was my favorite.
Yeah. And then you have someone like Aubrey who looks like he's just strolling up to the ball and then knocking it like almost 70 yards. And you're just like, it's effortless. And
insane.
And that he doesn't need a personality because he makes it all look so easily. So that kind of is his personality.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's at a different level nowadays.
Insane. So then also like, because like I said, like NFL is hard enough to watch it in the UK. So like, how do you watch college football in the UK? Like, how's that even possible?
So I use a VPN.
Oh yeah.
And I basically base myself in America, but I spend a decent chunk of money on like subscriptions to be able to watch it effectively. But there's no other way to get it. You'll get a few games every now and then on British TV, but you don't get to really choose. We used to have ESPN Player where you could watch out of like 20 games each Saturday. You could pick one, and that's why I really got into it because I could watch so many games. And that was the sort of era where Cincy got to like the college football playoff after those undefeated seasons with Ridder and that was great to watch because you could kind of tell like only a few of those are going to make it, but you were starting to fall in love with the guys that inevitably were never going to make it, but like they were so good in that system, and I was able to watch those games sort of back to back because of that. It's become a bit harder now where it's behind more paywalls. But I'll look and see what I can find, and then ESPN now does the extended highlights as well. So games that I do miss, I can still watch like 23 minutes of highlights, and normally I just go straight to like Diego Pavia, like Vanderbilt highlights.
That's crazy.
Just because I think he's got a little baker in him as well.
Yeah, ooh, he might be
next. He's a bit of a baller.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gravitate towards that, but yeah, I just try and watch it on whatever I can. But a lot of the time, it's basing myself in America to try and find it.
And then speaking of college football, like you said that you like the high scoring. So I know like in the NFL, that means you probably like the NFL how it is now, where it's like more high scoring versus like 20 years ago when it's like less. In a way, yeah. I think it's kind of gone a bit too far in some parts where I think
like quarterbacks are too protected, and actually we saw that this weekend where Herbert was like overly protected on a shot. Logan Hall got pinged for a roughing the passer where all he did was tackle the quarterback as well. So there's a little bit of overprotection. So I think we have gone a bit too far with it. But people want to see good football, and actually allowing for good offense allows for the best defenders to stand out as well. Otherwise, you're not really giving people the chance to play to the best of their ability. So someone like Pat Surtain stands out because he has to compete against the top receivers, and he's probably at a disadvantage each time because we know the NFL wants offensive football. But actually the NFL, I kind of like to see it as like a different form to college in a way. Very much like in rugby, we have rugby union and rugby league. They're different forms of rugby, and sometimes it's easier to distance them and be like, college is a really offensive game, whereas like the NFL is more like really gritty downhill run game. It's a lot more physical, obviously, in the trenches because it's a lot more competitive. At college level, you've got like people in the D line, people on the O line that are far better than the people you're going up against.
Yeah.
So it's just a huge discrepancy. So if offensively your tackles aren't getting bothered at all, then obviously you're going to have as much time as you want to throw the ball. Whereas the NFL, you don't get that. So I think you have to kind of appreciate each as an art form in itself.
Mm-hmm. Do you think like that like defensive football will ever come back? Because I remember like Paul, for example, like he was sending me a video of like NFL hits from like 2010s, and like I miss those days. I was like, dang, that used to be normal, because that's what I grew up on. Like,
yeah,
you know. So
as someone who retired from professional sport because of concussions, I think it's going in the right direction, unfortunately, but also fortunately at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the physicality out of football. You don't want to take that aspect out of it, but you have to channel that physicality in a different way. We know the dangers that the sport brings. Ultimately, these are highly athletic people, large people colliding at great speeds. It's innately dangerous. So what we can do to minimize that, I think, is important. But it's like channeling that physicality to make it so in those trenches, let's get it as physical as possible. Linebackers coming downhill, that's where the physicality is. So you might not see all these sort of blindside hits and all this sort of stuff anymore, but you still get that physicality. And when people do it right, you can see that physicality still comes through technique. So I think you have to kind of take it in that direction. But that's not to be forgotten, sort of the era that was hard hitting, but times change and ultimately the game has to change with it. And I think that's why it's going to always kind of be a more offensive game moving forward, because ultimately if we're like saying we can't make the hard hit, there's only so much a defense can do. It's going to become more and more offense driven, but that's also going to get more money for the NFL. So obviously they're going to want to drive that narrative. And it's up to defensive coordinators and defensive teams to really like hunker down and make it work. And we're still seeing that. Like we're seeing games where there's teams are just getting field goals, which as soon as you get near the opposition half, you're in field goal territory now. So if you can hold it to just field goals, it shows like defensive work still is going well. Like Fangio at the weekend with what he's doing in terms of the scheme, when he gets it right, it's really hard to get past. Mm-hmm. And Flores is doing the same with the Vikings. He can switch it up and make it interesting and confusing. And that's the way that I think we have to go defensively. That it's not all about the hard hits now. It's all about what can you do to make the quarterback second guess? What can you do to make them think? What can you show them that you haven't shown in previous games? Like what can you keep hidden? I think it's becoming more and more strategy based, and actually that's the way the sport was always going to go, as analytics has come into it as well. So it's now like the hits are still there, but then it's not the same physicality. So how can we still get that advantage more from sort of a mental standpoint than that physical standpoint?
That's so true. Yeah, and that reminds me, because I remember Cooper Kupp said that defenses are actually getting better, not getting worse. So that makes sense. So it's not more of like maybe of like the big hits you see, but it's actually a lot more technical, a lot more like strategic and everything. Yeah,
I think there was a lot of intimidation worked back in the day. I think even, like the Legion of Boom with the Seahawks were fantastic, but a large part of that was that before you even walked on the field, you knew what you were coming up against. Yet because a lot of that hard hitting's been taken away, defenses, you don't know what you're coming up against at all. So you might not have that intimidation factor of like, oh, we're going to get hit hard today. We know what they're like. We know they're physical. We know they're going to push us on the line. We know what they're going to do. But actually, it's maybe even trickier, because you're saying, I don't know what they're going to bring. And I think Flores is the perfect example of that. Like, he can give you looks that he hasn't shown all year because he's smart enough to keep things in his back pocket and really confuse players. And certain quarterbacks can't deal with that. So you're just seeing smarter defenses. You're seeing, like, I hope over time that it changes a bit so the college game transitions a bit easier in terms of defensive play, but obviously you could hold so much in the college game and it's just never pinged. Whereas in the NFL, they're holding an interference is getting pinged a lot more often now. So I'd like to see a smoother transition between that. But it is testing players that are coming out of college without overly physical. We've seen players like Terry and Arnold where it's like, you need to learn to play without that now.
Yeah.
So it's making players become better players, ultimately. You have to be able to shadow the player. You have to be able to stick with them without relying on that physicality. So ultimately, you become better football players, but it's just in a different style to how it used to be, where it's like, it's not all physicality and hits. It is more strategy and it's more skill set, ultimately.
Man, you just opened my eyes with that. I generally thought defenses were getting worse, but then you kind of think about it. It's like, okay, if you can't hit, you can't base your defense on just hitting people. You have to change it up, and you change it up through tactics. And
I think we're seeing a lot more zone coverage nowadays because that physicality of man's been taken away.
Yeah, everything's a flag.
And if you get zone coverage right, it's a beautiful thing to watch because you have receivers that look open, but as soon as that ball's thrown, 3 people are coming in and closing it down.
Yeah.
So it's like no one's open. And in the NFL, no one really ever is open unless there's a defensive error anyway.
Yeah.
But when you get zone coverage right, it's just, you can see why quarterbacks that are really clean then throw an interception out of nowhere, because it's just the way that looks a disguise now. It's just superb. And I think it's one thing that Todd Bowles does well at the Bucs, and sometimes it's the downfall, sometimes the good thing is that he drops players that you wouldn't expect to drop. So Vita Vea will drop into coverage, Diaby will drop into coverage, and it can work. And then when the play breaks down like it did against the Bills at the weekend, Yaya Diaby's chasing a receiver down the touchline and it's never going to work.
Yeah.
But it's just trying things like that. And when it comes off, you can see why defenses just don't understand. The offenses, don't understand what's going on, because coaches are just having to be really smart, really unique. And it's just better for the game, I think, across the board. And it makes it more difficult for a casual fan to potentially understand. So from a British standpoint, unless you're fully nerded into the sport like I am, potentially it's a bit tougher to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And you think of the NFL, particularly from certain generations, as just like hits.
Yeah.
But as you start to learn the sport a little bit better, and I think it's about the commentary teams on the games as well, like what are they showing in terms of how they're educating how defenses are working and why plays aren't coming off that look open or look like they should be surefire things. But ultimately, I think defense has had to improve because the league is catered towards offense nowadays. But that's unfortunately the way with sort of medical knowledge and advances in that field and understanding of what was happening in the game. It was always going to go in that direction, and I think it will continue to do so. Yeah,
100%. And also, speaking of dominant defenses, so I feel like the last dominant defense that we'll probably ever see is the 2013 Seahawks. But we're just talking to another fan, and he was saying that he would argue that it's the 2015 Broncos. But I don't really say it. I feel like it's 2013 defense, because I feel like they were arguably, I think they're the top 5 defense of all time.
In terms of consistency, the Broncos ultimately won a Super Bowl because of defense, though.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to hold them up there, because on Manning's play, they shouldn't have made it to the Super Bowl. So defensively, they were a different defensive team. Maybe not as impactful or personality driven, but just really good at defense. But then I also think we're about to see maybe the next 2 years of either the Lions or the Eagles just be ridiculous in defense. The squads that they've built up through the draft is unreal. Particularly if the Eagles can get fully fit on their defense, it's ridiculous. They get rid of Milton Williams because they didn't want to pay him, and then they've got a 7th rounder in a Jomo who just fills the gap superbly. They've just brought in Jalen Phillips. It's unfair. And I think with the Fangio design, that defense could be another one that we look at in the next year or two and be like, how do you beat that? So, I would agree. I think the Seahawks one is probably the best defense I've seen in terms of being fully invested in the sport. But also they had the offense to go with it. So the defense had a character to it. It had a name to it with the sort of Legion of Boom. But the Broncos was not quietly good, because everyone knew the defense was superb, but it didn't need this bombastic personality side to it. It was just really good.
Yeah.
And some people prefer that to the really character-driven defense as well. But I'll always go back to that. And I think it's, as we said, it's sort of that bygone era now, even though it wasn't that long ago. In terms of that physicality, you're not going to see another defense like that because you can't. Whereas the Broncos was almost that transition towards where we're going now, and defenses having to be smarter and players having to be not necessarily more skilled, but having to be more mentally on point with things.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the Seahawks weren't skilled, because obviously they were, but they were allowed to do that physicality alongside it. So I think it's slightly different now, but I wouldn't be surprised to see, the Eagles or the Lions really continue to pop off with their defenses in the way they have. And the Texans are another team that if they've got a lot of young guys. I think Stingley's one of the best in the league. Anderson's up there. in terms of like a dark horse for defensive player of the year. Like they've
this
got
year?
the pieces there. Yeah, I mean the easy answer is Myles Garrett. It's always Myles Garrett. Should be, but then for the past like 5 years, everyone could be like, oh, offensive player should be Mahomes. It's always Mahomes, and actually that's not the way it ever goes. Like narratively, I think it's probably more pushing towards Hutchinson at the moment. But I think Will Anderson's got a good case for it, particularly if the Texans can start to hang in games a bit more, where offensively they're just not doing the job. But I think he's up there. But yeah, no, obviously the easy answer is it's Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Watching him in that Browns-Vikings game, like on the stat sheet, it doesn't look that good, but there were so many sacks that came from players that you didn't expect. I think it was Wright who was he got 2 or 3 sacks in that game, and it was like, but Garrett's like double manned, and he's still almost getting to the quarterback each time, and he's forcing the quarterback into somewhere else so someone else can get him. Obviously, Wentz just didn't have that mobility, was getting hit quite hard, so his mobility was getting further and further drained throughout the game. So, yeah, the obvious answer is that. But actually, there's young guys coming through like Will Anderson, like Hutch. I think Max Crosby just continues to get better and better.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing a lot of like the older guys maybe picking up injuries, like the Bosa's are picking up injuries, going to start to sort of tail off a little bit now. Obviously, Von Miller's gone past that point now, so it's ready for these young guys to step up. And Abdul Carter's another one. And then I think you've got a couple coming through the draft this year that could potentially be sort of game records quite early on, particularly in sort of Ruben Bain if he goes to the right spot, which I would argue is not the Titans. Ultimately, where he might end up,
Yeah.
like he's got that potential as well, just to be instantly sort of impactful, like Hutch, Anderson, like Abdul Carter, like those guys have.
So one of the biggest things that you said is that the MVP is not a stat story; it's more of a narrative story. So yeah, explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things come together ultimately, but it's easy to expect an MVP to be just stats. But actually, we saw last year it's not just stats, because if it had been stats, Lamar would have been the one that won it. And actually, there is a narrative towards it, and that in that case, there was narratives to both sides. But the additional narrative of being Josh Allen's first always seemed, from my vantage point, to just put him over the edge a little bit. And then the consistency of the Bills over the past few years, it seemed like he's missed out a few times, and it was like they're almost dying to give it to him. And I said that obviously around like Baker when I first met you, it was like narrative wise was flying in MVP odds because it made sense. Like he was balling out, he had been balling out for the past like 2 years as well. So it's like it made sense, and then he's dropped off for sort of multiple different reasons now. But now there's a few different people that you can go for, but we're also at that midway point where a few people that you think might be up for it then have a bad game, like Darnold, for example. At the weekend, you're like, Darnold could be that one, which again, he's got a huge narrative behind him in terms of like the comeback from where he's been to where he is now. Then to get sort of let go effectively by the Vikings and said, look, we're not going to bring you in, we're going to go with JJ, which in hindsight looks like a pretty poor decision on their part. Though obviously there's a lot of time left for JJ to succeed, and he's definitely got the sort of personality and characteristics to do it. But like Donald's gone away and done really well, but then it's just like you have a bad game where you throw interceptions and you sort of just like pluck back a little bit. Then it's like maybe your narrative's dropping off now. Like his stats are still the same. He's got some interceptions alongside it, but the stats he's had all year have been superb. So it's like the stats are still very much there, just with a few interceptions more. But then the narrative is like, but maybe he doesn't have it. Right? And that's why I think this year, like, there's a clear front runner at the moment, and we can get into it of like how I made another error when I spoke to you last time. The clear front runner at the moment is Matthew Stafford, because he's basically faultless. Like he doesn't make mistakes. Like he does all the flashy like no look stuff, and he's really good. He's really consistent, but his lack of interceptions, alongside like he's a really experienced quarterback, and he hasn't really dropped off in previous years. There's a narrative going alongside the stats there, and actually he's sort of made a fool out of me in the sense that when you spoke to me and my dad, we said, look, we don't think there is like an elite quarterback in the NFC, and actually he's proper straddling that line now. I think in terms of the consistency he's got, and he's done it in a Super Bowl as well. It's like if you were going to take one quarterback to lead you for 1 year, outside of those main four that sort of write themselves, Stafford's probably the one you would take. And it's like, and how close is he from that tier 2 to that elite tier now? I'd put him at probably ahead of Herbert and ahead of Dak. So he's there or thereabouts. And I think it's this year that, I mean, I hope for his sake that he does get the MVP, because I think he's a really likable person as well. And he stuck it out in Detroit in really tough circumstances. And actually his moves benefited him, and it's benefited Detroit at the same time. So I don't think Detroit fans should wish him like ill either. I think that they've proved they can win with Goff, and it's allowed them to really rebuild their whole team, which they've done superbly. So yeah, I think it is more of a narrative than just stats, but obviously you need the stats for it still to work. But with it being more narrative driven, I think that's why also we're just going to keep seeing quarterback winners, because that's where the narrative is. Quarterbacks win you games, because realistically we should be talking about JSN in MVP conversation. We're not going to be. Yeah, offensive player of the year, yeah. But then if he's not MVP, but a quarterback is, then surely they should also be offensive player of the year. So it's like, it's a grey area where actually I think we need to take a step back and realise that MVP is the most valuable player, and it's a positional value thing alongside that now. So it will always be a quarterback, unless someone has like a really insane defensive year where they win games like the Broncos Super Bowl run, where the defense is so important that they've won them the whole thing effectively. It's just going to keep being narrative driven for the quarterback, and that's fine. But yeah, it means that players that are in MVP front running can drop off really quickly as well, because ultimately as soon as you lose that step in the narrative, it can help you as well. Like if Darnold comes back and he doesn't throw any interceptions the rest of the year, that blip and then his comeback becomes a narrative point where you're like, well, now there's an extra sort of string to the bow in terms of his MVP narrative. Same with Baker. If Baker gets some receivers back and suddenly starts balling out for the end of the year and the Bucs don't lose, there's a narrative there as well. So it can be beneficial to drop off, but it can also just mean that you're effectively out of the running as well. And I think and when you start to see it in that way, it becomes a really difficult one to predict, because who do you go for? Because the game changes week on week, particularly this season with all the injuries, and you've got teams winning games like comfortably, like the Jags just destroyed the Chargers.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
And it's like, I love the Jags. Liam Cohen left the Bucs in grey area, but I love him as a coach. Like I really like the way he runs his offense, and I thought they'd be really good this year. I still have really high hopes for Trevor Lawrence, which I probably shouldn't. And actually, I think in a new system, in a different team, I think he could be the difference maker. And in an ideal world, I'd love him to replace Stafford when he retires at the Rams, because I think Sean McVay could do wonders with Lawrence. But like, games change on a week-to-week basis, so it's a really tough one, and that's why narrative's going to be so important, particularly this year, I think, where lots of the teams we expected to win divisions aren't going to do that. Like, are the Bills going to win their division? Maybe not. It looks like the Chiefs almost certainly aren't going to win their division. The Ravens have got to come back massively to get to that point. Like, you've got all of these teams that normally you'd be like, well, they've got the best quarterback, it'll work. Like, Burrow's been out for the whole year effectively. Like, it's time for someone to step up from a narrative standpoint, and I think that's why Stafford's pretty much front runner at the moment. But I think Baker and Darnold have still got an opportunity at that back end. And if JSN continues to go off at this rate, then I'd like to see at least some sort of media narrative driving that one forward as well, because it's not just the story of like a player that's been brilliant every single year continuing it. He's been really good since he's come into the league, and he's just had that step up this year. And I think that deserves to be recognised from a narrative standpoint as well. So yeah, I think it's stats and narrative, but ultimately, if you understand that the narrative is important, then it's really tricky to understand where it's going to go until you get to the final few weeks, and then you can almost predict. You're like, that makes sense now.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's two things, because it makes me sad, because like the last year, right, I was like 100% sure Lamar is going to win it, because like I look at all the criteria, like he's playing on national TV every single week, winning the games every single week, has a better record. And let's say it was like Lamar and Josh Allen. Lamar literally beat Josh Allen, like blew him out on national TV again. I'm like, there's no way. I'm watching the thing, and it just said Josh Allen. I was like, there's no way. Like it literally broke me. I was like, how? Like,
I think this is the thing, but like
better stats too.
But the narrative also comes from the year before, and it's like, if Lamar hadn't won the MVP in the past few years, he then would have had more of a narrative driving it towards that as well. So it's like, it was almost like you can't pick the wrong person out of the two of them. And that's why, yeah, I just assumed that Allen was going to get it. So I just thought like the narrative driving towards it. But actually, I know that it was almost a 50-50 split amongst fans. That, like, and the people that thought Lamar was going to get it was like, just look at the stats, look at the wins. It's there. Like, what are you not seeing? Mm-hmm. And then you like look at the Josh Allen side. You're like, yeah, but who's Josh Allen throwing the ball to as well?
Yeah,
like he's making something out of nothing, and so is Lamar. But Lamar's doing it with Mark Andrews.
Yeah, like.
And he's doing it with a good receiving core who are getting open. Whereas Josh Allen, like Keon Coleman, supposedly his number one receiver. And that's not like an MVP winning team. And that's not a team that's like got Super Bowl hopes. So I think, yeah, the narrative is driven a little bit there. But it was one of those ones I don't think you really could have gone wrong with who you'd given it to, but someone was always going to have an opinion like either way.
Yeah, my thing was just like, but I mean, like, you see us, like, we were playing like the best teams in the league. Like, you see Josh Allen, he gets to play the Patriots twice a year, Dolphins twice a year, Jets twice a year at 12 o'clock, you know? So I was just like, I really, that was like, there's no way. Like, because even 23, I was like, I think low-key, if Lamar didn't have like if the Ravens didn't have the best record, I don't think he would have won MVP because he didn't have the stats, for example, right? Like, and it was more of like, to give him the MVP, you would have to like watch the game, like to actually know his impact. So that's why I was surprised. I was happy that he won MVP. But again, it's like what you're saying. It's all narrative based. So
and like
it's kind of like that in the NBA as well.
Yeah, and like the wins are important, but it's what those wins look like in comparison to the previous year, what those wins look like in comparison to the division. Like particular victories that you've got along the line. Are you consistent week in, week out? Or have you got some games where you've dipped off a little bit and then the week later you're really going really well, which Allen has those periods where he has a game where he drops off and he then suddenly back. Whereas Lamar's got maybe a little bit more consistency to him as well, so the narrative can go either way with that. But yeah, it was almost like, yeah, we've already given it to Lamar, so let's just give Josh this one, and then we'll let next year work out who's better.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was Lamar one. That one broke me, but the one which was like crazy, and it made me realize that like NFL doesn't do the right thing, which I mean, in my opinion, was 2014 MVP JJ Watt versus Aaron Rodgers. Like, JJ Watt, I feel like should have won that MVP. Like, a defensive tackle, 20 plus sacks, second time in his career, by the way, but 20 plus sacks, 5 touchdowns as a defensive end, 3 on offense. Like, I mean, there's not much more you can do.
No. And ultimately that's why the narrative's now so important and why the V in MVP is so important, because as we've got more aware of positional value, it's almost like it has to go to a quarterback because that's the most valuable position on the field. That's the one that's winning games. And actually, if a defensive player has like a stellar year where it's almost historical, it's like, we want to give it to you, but still, like, the mindset of voters and the optics, it just always seems to lean towards the quarterback. But yeah, no, that's sort of a glaring year where it was like, it was almost a sign that this is the direction that the NFL is going. And it was almost like for a few years, you're like, oh, so it's going to be a quarterback or Aaron Donald.
Literally, oh my goodness, every time.
Which I didn't mind because actually, and I'll die on this cliff, there was like a 3-year period where Aaron Donald was the best American football player on the planet. Regardless of positional value, there was no one who was better at the sport in their particular role. So it made sense that he was up in that echelon, but it just meant that almost nobody else could be. Because that's our token defensive player. He's the one that's incredible. No one matches up to him. Whereas actually, in the years preceding that, after that, we've had TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, JJ Watt, like players that have been at that level. But it's like the discussion never comes because we'll go back to quarterbacks now. Like, Donald's done, so we'll just go back to quarterbacks, and it's going to take like another player to stand up and do a really historical thing, and then for there not to be a really nice narrative on the quarterback at the same time. So it will almost have to be something given to a defensive player because there's no one else to give it to, because there's no clear narrative there. But it's a tricky one, but it seems like the award is becoming a bit more blurred lines in terms of who you actually give it to and whether that is genuinely is what you consider the best player of the season, or is it the most valuable player of the season? Yeah,
because now it's just like MVP is like a quarterback award, and then Offensive Player of the Year is just like the best, the non-QB. Yeah. So,
but the same thing is like, I've always been annoyed that no offensive linemen were regarded an Offensive Player of the Year because they're as valuable as other players, if not more so. Like the fact that they've had to make up an award this year with Protector of the Year to try and give Lane Johnson something because he's deserved it throughout his whole career. Is like, it's good they've done that, but that's just a sign that they always should have been recognised. Same with like Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. Joe Alt should have been in contention, and like Brock Bowers should have been in contention, and they're not because they weren't quarterbacks at that point. So the quarterbacks haven't played as well as they have, but it's more narrative driven in terms of it's a quarterback there again. So it's just like, and then we don't get onto like Comeback Player of the Year where it's like, what is Comeback Player of the Year? You come back from an injury, you come back from the couch, or you come back from nearly dying and then playing NFL football again like Hamlin did, and it's like, yeah, but Flacco came off the couch, so we'll give it to Flacco. It'll be all right.
Joe Flacco literally changed history with that.
Yeah, and it's like, but then it's like, oh, so now what, is Christian McCaffrey going to get it this year because he was injured?
Yeah.
Now he's come back, and it's like it's a full narrative. It's nothing to actually do with like who is the player that's come back from the most horrible situation, besides the Alex Smith year where it was given correctly.
Yeah.
But it kind of made a mockery of it that you literally had someone nearly die on the field, and you're like, he's come back, and he's now starting football games as well. When he wasn't a starter, obviously initially, and they had injuries, and he came back and played, and it was like, yeah, but this one's a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and as much as Flacco's was incredible, like his comeback was brilliant, and he's added years onto his career that never should have happened.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he's proven that he's actually very good in this switch to the Bengals as well.
Absolutely love it.
But it was like, yeah, you didn't come back from near death, so maybe it's a different narrative.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, how much can you put on awards, because they are narrative driven? And it's like in the previous like decades before the analytics come in, like how much can you put on All Pros and Pro Bowls? Because it's people saying what they see. They'll be like, oh, he's the best guard. I was like, why? Because we've seen him like more people in the run game, but like he can't pass protect. But he's a Pro Bowler because of optics look good. Whereas now we can actually look at players in terms of their efficiency and go, oh no, you are the best in your position because you're good at all of these things. So it's just like, yeah, now put a bit more credence now on that side of things as opposed to the end of season awards, because that stuff is very much data driven, whereas a lot of the awards are data and narrative driven. So data only plays so much into those.
Yeah, exactly. Even that position thing, that reminded me, that happened with Zeke in 2016 when like you had two really good rookies in Dak and Zeke was like, people were thinking that Zeke was going to win the MVP. And then obviously he's a running back, so he's not going to win MVP. And obviously he's not a running back. He's not a quarterback, so he's not going to win MVP. And then if it's between quarterback and running back versus for rookie of the year, they're going to give it to the quarterback. So they gave it to Dak, and then Zeke didn't win anything. Had 1,600 yards, like I think led the league in rushing. And
that's the thing, because it's like that's almost like forcing the word value into a title that doesn't have value as well. But it's the narrative is like who was more valuable to their team, and ultimately Dak probably was more valuable to the team. But could you say he had a better year in terms of like his position across the league? No. And I think we saw the same like last year. Like Jaden Daniels was superb last year. I hold nothing against him. I watched him torment the Bucs, and no one could lay a finger on him. But Brock Bowers had like a historical season for his position, and he got like no votes. Then he got one vote, in fact, and I know because I listened to the podcast of someone who's an AP voter who gave him that vote.
That's crazy.
But it was like he should have been higher regarded than that in terms of like, the positional value's worse, but he was one of the best tight ends in the league, if not the best tight end in the league, and he was a rookie, and he put up in his historical season for a team that didn't have a quarterback. Like, there's a narrative there, but he's not a quarterback, so he didn't get it.
Yeah, it's crazy how narratives change. It's worse in the NBA where it's like literally the narrative and that's it. Like, yeah, it's so interesting. And then like, man, it just sucks. But then, okay, so then in terms of like the MVP, like you think it's just going to be Stafford. But what do you think? Who do you see like for the Super Bowl this year?
So, I think if Stafford wins MVP, then the Rams are probably my NFC pick to get there.
Over the Lions.
I think the Rams are the best team in the league. I think the Lions are there. I think since Campbell's taken like offensive play calling, like the one game it worked, but then you saw like what the Eagles did defensively against them. Like they're hot and cold whilst also being like consistently brilliant. But I think the Rams are going to be there. The Eagles are always a team that you don't know what Eagles are going to show up. And also if you don't get the right pressure on Jalen Hurts, he can hurt you. Also if you get like pressure too often or you blitz too often, he can get out of there and hurt you with his legs as well. And defensively, they've got guys that can wreck the game and really change it. And then there's the thing is, if the Bucs can pull it back, the Bucs are somewhat guaranteed a playoff place through the division. I think the Panthers are still lacking that consistency. Even though Bryce was superb yesterday, ultimately he's still not playing as well as he could do. So the Bucs, and then it's like, who do they play being like a number one seed from their division? So I think from there, and then it's wide open in the AFC. Like if the Chiefs make the playoffs, you can't rule the Chiefs out. The Bills make the playoffs, but now they might not get home field advantage from it. Just like,
thank goodness.
The Patriots, like how good are the Patriots? Like, and that's why Drake May is the other front runner for MVP, effectively, because if the Patriots continue on the way they're going, he has to be, because everyone expected a turnaround, but not this much.
100%.
So if they keep this form going, they're a momentum team, and Vrabel's a kind of coach that you think a team can really get behind in terms of momentum, and that dressing room is probably like almost winning you the game before you get out there. Then you just got to execute. But then it's like the Colts, like how good can Daniel Jones be to finish? Is that like Jonathan Taylor's playing so well offensively that their play action game is brilliant, because you just assume Jonathan Taylor's getting the ball, because why would you not? Because if you don't assume it, you're not going to stop him. And then they've got Tyler Warren, who's playing superbly. Alec Pierce is looking like a Pro Bowl wide receiver. Like they've proven that if you build a squad of really good players and you get the right coaching, and then you just find the quarterback that can make it work, you can go far as well. So I think it's really interesting. But I think if I was going to put like a choice on it now, I think I'd probably go Rams, Bills.
Dang, no Ravens?
No.
Dang.
I think the Ravens might scrape it, but I just don't think they're going to be able to maintain it. I think everything's going to have to go right in terms of injuries to get there. And then also it's like, once you get on such a run that the Ravens are going to have to go to, and it might happen with the Patriots as well, it's like, then it's like the expectation to keep that run going. So it's no longer like that Cinderella story of terms of, this run's been superb. It's like, but we're on a winning streak, so let's just keep winning. It's like then the expectation changes, and we saw it happen to the Eagles a few years ago where they won loads of games and they lost their last 6. It's like they're expected to win, and then they suddenly just fell off. Yeah. So it's like, I think the Bills are still, after watching what the Bills did to the Bucs at the weekend without really getting out of second gear in half of it, and making errors that the Bucs capitalized on quite a few of them and still won quite comfortably by the end of it. That's a team that just have got enough to win it.
Yeah.
But I think the Rams would be the ones that I think at this point I put like my stake in the ground. I think the Rams will win it.
That'd be cool. That it's because I remember like when Stafford won the Super Bowl, and I remember Richard Sherman was saying like he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not a Hall of Famer, and like people were going, like it was a big debate. But if he wins the second one,
he can also retire and probably still be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, so you think? Dang. So you think he's an MVP right now?
Yeah,
I mean, not MVP. You think he's a Hall of Famer right now?
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer right now. I think he needs another 3 or 4 years. But if he wins another Super Bowl and he wins MVP this year, then he probably is. In terms of his stats, in terms of what he did in Detroit, what he's done in the Rams, and you look at the Rams squad turnover in between those, the squad that he won the Super Bowl with, and how many of 45% of that team were drafted by the Rams, and there were a lot of late round picks, and he managed to win it with that. And then you've got, again, like the Rams were fancy, but they weren't fancied like this year properly. So if he can go away and do that and then potentially get MVP alongside it, I think he's got a proper claim to get there. Whether he does that and then retires, or whether he spends another couple of years and just sort of cements that. But I mean, it'd be a great story for them to sort of finish this year, win it, and then McVay and Stafford both just walk away and be like, yeah, we're done now.
Yeah. Right off to the sunset.
I feel like McVay's kind of begging to finish in a way. I think every year it's harder for him to come back. But
he was going to retire after the Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, and I think that would be the perfect way to be like, yeah, I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
But for both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see them do it, because I just like the way they play. I think Puka's easy to like. I think Kyron's easy to like. Yeah. The way that they've replaced the defensive line in the aggregate with multiple players since Donald's retired is really great to see. Like, I loved Verse coming out of college. Like Fisk, it's got like a little bit of grittiness to him as well. He's a bit undersized. So they're just easy to like, I think, as well. As much as I would love it to be Bucks, because you should get Baker in a Super Bowl. You don't know which Baker's going to show up. So you can at least go into the game going, anything can happen.
Baker Mayfield in a Super Bowl. That would be so interesting. I would love to watch that.
He could ball out like he did against the Seahawks this year. Yeah. Or he could be old Baker. It could be anything. But in college games, when it was like he needed to show up, he showed up.
Yeah.
So it's like he's played on the big platforms. Like, yeah, like in terms of the sort of college football playoff, he wasn't able to get them over the line in those. But like big shootout games, he just loves. So if you can get into a Super Bowl where he's playing against like a Josh Allen, where he potentially is like a shootout. And I think even if like the Patriots somehow get there, like Drake May very much is a shootout style game, that suits him. Whereas I think any of those teams coming up against the Rams can just slow it down. They can run the ball, then go with those really tight end like heavy sets, get 3 tight ends out there, just run that clock down, and then go, yeah, but which quarterback do we back to finish the job? Who's going to be more consistent? Who's not going to throw the ball away? And at the moment, the one quarterback in the league who's not throwing the ball away is Stafford. So
yeah. He's really efficient this year.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at his career, he's been efficient all the way through. And I think that's what like stats wise, it isn't just about like the yards he's got, the touchdowns he's got. I think if you just watch the way he's played, he is a consistent thrower of the ball, and he's also got those like underdog grittiness stories to him as well, where he's like obviously like dislocated his shoulder, came back out, won the game, went back off the field again. So he's probably not there at the moment, but yeah, if you get 2 Super Bowls and you've got that long a career in the NFL, you like where you've been a starting quarterback and you've been a good starting quarterback. He's never had like a bad year where you can be like, oh, he's fallen off. Like he's always been solid, if not better. So it's like it's kind of written for him in that way.
Yeah, and one of my favorite like player seasons that I watched was like Stafford was like in 2013. Like they started off hot and then they kind of tailed off and missed the playoffs. You know, average Lions. But like I just liked watching him and Megatron. Like he doesn't know who Megatron is yet. But exactly. I'm gonna show him. Like I literally named my dog after Megatron, bro. And my dog is a female, and we named her Calvin. That's how big of a Megatron like
was
impact.
Though.
Yeah,
Megatron just walked away because he was like, "Yeah, I'm done."
Yeah, literally.
It's like I'm that good.
Yeah.
That like there was another one. It's like I don't need a long career because I'm in the Hall of Fame. Like I'm that good.
Yeah.
Like and like Stafford had him, but like it was kind of just him at that point. But you could still see Stafford like throwing the ball around and getting other people involved, and it was just. But yeah, Megatron and Stafford, that connection, if that could have kept going for a few more years, Detroit could have had something there.
Yeah, exactly.
And in a way, like you're kind of happy now Detroit have got something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a city as well as the team that I think you kind of want to root behind. Same with like Cleveland, like it's a team that's been so downtrodden. I think if Cleveland got it right, I wouldn't be angry. I'd kind of been like, it's nice to see them getting it right. And I think the same with Detroit. And then Detroit have just built it around a coach that it's just you can't not like him. Like he's just an insane burly guy that just like fits the city, fits the team perfectly. And you're like, it's kind of as much as they're in the same like conference, I do want to see them do well at the same time. And as I said earlier, it's nice that both parties from that trade are doing well off the back of it, because ultimately that's what teams are trying to achieve. Like if a trade's got parity, that's how it should work. There should never really be a loser in a trade, because if the trade value is correct, it should benefit both sides. Yeah, and that's a prime example of it working.
It actually might be like the most perfect trade in NFL history.
Yeah, I think you struggle to find a better one in terms of like the value that both teams have got out of it. Yeah, I don't think there is another one. Like one team's got a Super Bowl, one team looks well balanced to achieve like a Super Bowl in the next few years. And if you look at like the Detroit side of it, what they've got out of those picks and what they've done in the draft since then, it was just the catalyst to make that work. So yeah, I think it's the most like parity you'll see in a trade across the board, and that's how it should be. Like if we get the value of a trade correct, both teams should benefit. And if you do your scouting correctly and you pick the right players and you fit your system and you get a coach that fits the system, then you should be able to use those picks effectively. And that's what they've done. And they wanted Jared Goff as well as like taking his contract on. You could see that it's actually someone they thought they could win with, and it's nice to see him almost get thrown away and then come back and prove that he still can compete at that high level. Yeah. Because like the first Rams Super Bowl run, Goff was superb and it was great to watch. And it was like, it was almost sad to see him get sort of the bad media side after that. So it's nice to see him pick it back up, because he does seem like a likable character in the sense of like a player that's easy to root for because he's been downtrodden, but he's got that like Cali boy image to him as well. And so I think it's just, it's nice when like trades like that work and you can see it benefiting both sides, because ultimately as a fan of the sport, that's what you should want to see. So yeah, it'd be nice to see like either of those teams make the Super Bowl. If the Bucs aren't there, I'd be rooting for either one of those. Yeah, exactly. And then also, like, how legit do you think the Broncos are? I don't think they're that good though. This is where I might get some stick. Yeah. Because they're 9-2 right now. Coming into the season, I had really high hopes for them because I thought Bo was gonna take a next step. But I think Bo's kind of done the CJ Stroud model where he hasn't taken that next step. And like he's still playing well, but he's not, if anything, he's playing a little bit worse. Defensively, they're superb. And I think you can see that every game they play. They've got the coach to be able to do it. But I think Bo's going to need to step up that little bit more. And whether it's like have him sling the ball again, have him play fearless, have him play stronger, or just get more of those sort of quick screenplays in, get the ball out of his hands quicker, get the ball in his hands and have him run with it a little bit, like get him a bit more confident. Because when you watch him play, yeah, they're winning games, but he doesn't seem the same confident player that he was last year. So when it comes to the playoffs, how big an impact is that going to have? So yeah, I don't know, but if he finds that confidence, then I think they can go far, because defensively they are superb, but it's just, I don't think Nick's has been the player that people necessarily expected him to be, but no one expected him to be that player last year either, and then he managed to achieve it. So it's like, it's in there, just can they make it work now?
Yeah, 100%. I still don't really know if they're that good. I would love, as a Ravens fan, to like go. Well, maybe Denver is kind of tough to play, especially in the playoff time. But I would love to go and like play them. I used to say I used to love to see the Patriots and play them first round, but they might be legit. So I'm a little scared. But yeah, we'll see though. In terms of the Ravens though, I remember when we were 1-5, I wasn't really worried. I still felt like we could still go on a run. I remember I made a video like that and but it was basically like, it's about time that the Ravens are going to reclaim the North. So do you think that the Ravens will, who do you think is going to win that AFC North?
I think the Ravens will win it. It was really interesting that Vegas, the whole way through, thought the Ravens were going to win it, even when they were just losing games as well. It was like, there's no faith in the Steelers, which is really interesting because actually when the Steelers have played well this year, they played really well. But it's like, that shows the drop off of what people's expectations of Rodgers are. I think the narrative way for the Ravens is now Ravens aren't an underdog, but now they've found themselves in an underdog position. And I think even to have the coach in an underdog position when he's been so consistent, I think that's something that can really spread through that team and get them there. But I just wonder whether they'll run out of steam once they get to that point, whether it'll be a big thing of we've got this momentum, now we're rolling, or whether it's so hard to get to that final point and it's just we've every game effectively is a playoff game until then now. How often, how much can you keep that going before you finally fall to a team like the Patriots or the Broncos that are so far ahead at the moment? They can afford to lose a few games in the meantime and maybe rest a few players towards the end of it if necessary, if they're already into the playoffs. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, but I don't have a lot of faith in the Steelers either. So I love Tomlin, but he's a consistently winning coach at a point. It's how much faith can you put in him and Rodgers to really get over the line there, when you've got the Ravens coming with a lot of firepower in the offense, and you've got someone like Carl Hamilton running rough shot on the back end. That's tough for any team to beat. So I think they can get there, but whether they can keep pushing through the edge, I don't know whether it'll be a next year story again for the Ravens.
Yeah, it sucks. But then for the Steelers, then if they don't win the division, then what happens with them?
I mean, they just stay being the Steelers, I guess.
The 9-8 Steelers.
They just stay winning games. Tomlin doesn't go until Tomlin walks, I think, at this point. But it was always going to be you're probably a 9-8, 10-7 team with Rodgers. Will that be enough? Will there be injuries? Will stuff happen? And that's happened. So if they can't then get over the line, it's where do you go from here? You've got these aging superstars in terms of Ramsey, Hayward, Watt. It's it needs to happen now if it's going to happen. Does Rodgers stay on for another year? Probably not. So where do you go with that? Are you willing to throw draft capital at a quarterback elsewhere, someone like a Lawrence or someone like that, to be we think we can make it work here? Or do you have to just suck it up and be actually, we need to rebuild, and winning these seasons to this point isn't getting us anywhere? They had hung on to Big Ben maybe just a little bit too long, and it's maybe they're doing the same thing again. But if they make the playoffs, it's a team that can still potentially cause damage on any given day. We've seen when Rodgers plays well this year, Rodgers plays lights out well. And defensively, if they can get everybody firing, they can cause some damage. So they just need to make their way to the playoffs and hope that they do that at the top of the division. But if not, hope that there's a bit of a drop off elsewhere and they're able to get sort of that wild card spot. But with the likes of the Chiefs and Bills potentially looking at wild card spots now as well, it's going to be tough for them to sort of make that. So kind of stuck in that Steelers no man's land.
Yeah,
which is tough because I want to see Tomlin get further because I think he seems like a really likable, honest coach. And his winning record is superb, and he should be a Hall of Fame coach for that because that's unreal.
100%.
But is that good enough for a city like Pittsburgh with the history they've got? How often can you just keep winning and making the first round of the playoffs before you let's strip it back and start again? Because we've seen lots of teams strip it back, start again, and now they're making Super Bowls, whereas we've just ticked along underneath. Seeing the same thing that can happen with the Saints, where they've had to do that now, and they should have done that earlier. And actually they're further down in the doldrums now because they waited for so long.
Yeah.
It's like, if you wait too long, you might end up even further down from where you want to be. So it's like, maybe it's time to sort of rip that Band-Aid off and make a change. But you make the playoffs and suddenly the narrative completely flips and you're like, we won the division, we're in the playoffs. Rodgers played well enough to get us there. Do we keep him for another year? We keep Tomlin going. Do we run it back and see if we can do it again? So like 1 or 2 games could change the whole narrative behind the Steelers in the direction they go after this. But it's a tough one. It's one of those teams that as a fan, you probably like, you're really happy, but you're not at the same time.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's easier to just accept your team's useless. Like as hard as it is to be like a Jets or a Browns fan, you're going into the season with no hope.
Yeah.
Like the hope kills you at the end of the day. You're going in with no hope. With the Steelers, you're going and going, we could make a run, we could win this, and then you come to the end of the season, and you're like, it's the same again. It's like in football, like the UK. It's a mid-table finish or just above mid-table. It's like finishing 8th in the Premier League every season.
Yeah, you don't get any major cup.
Anything.
Yeah.
Like even in that season, like in the Premier League, you get into European competitions off the back of it. But like that's effectively the first round of playoffs and getting knocked out is like being just below there.
Yeah.
So we're best of the rest, but we're struggling to get anywhere above that. And it's like, so which would you rather have? Would you rather keep winning from a fan standpoint? Would you rather strip it back and go for the full win? And ultimately you'd think that's where you'd want to lean, but losing's not easy either.
Yeah. And then with the Steelers, I'm not giving them a hope because this will never happen. This is not happening this season. But it did kind of happen with Bill Cowher in terms of like, he made it to the Super Bowl early. He didn't win it, but, he made it to the Super Bowl in like 95. And they were still very competitive, winning AFC North titles, winning AFC North titles. They were really, really good, but they just weren't winning the Super Bowl. But it happened on his last season where he got the Super Bowl win, and then, everyone's happy. So
ultimately, if it was going to be a season, it should be this season. Like everything they needed to happen in the division has happened.
Yeah.
Like, Burrow's been out. Lamar's been out. The Browns have a defense and that's it. They have anything else to offer, which is a shame because they have some quality players and their offensive line are about to all walk out the door. Like they're not going to be competitive. This was the year we got Rodgers in to get us to that winning record, to get us into the playoffs. It should have been made easier. So now we should be in the playoffs with like a healthy Rodgers, like ready to go. So it's like, if it doesn't happen this year, it is a little bit of like, well, what else can we do with this current state of affairs other than strip it back and start again?
And just rebuild.
Like, ultimately, you're rebuilding, but you're rebuilding on foundations that aren't completely like assured and stable. Like these are players that are, as they get older, are more injury prone. Like you're spending a lot of cap space on guys that are getting older as well. And it doesn't mean that Hayward and Watt won't be really effective players still, but it's like, it's still tough to get over the line with them. And it's like, and how much can you rely on these other guys that are playing well? Like I'm a big Kenneth Gainwell fan, loved him in college. Loved him coming out. I thought it's like a passing down back, particularly like catching. I thought he'd be really great, and he's having a really good year. But can you expect him to do that again next year? Like, can you expect the sum of your parts to work? Maybe, maybe not. So it's, I think they're just stuck in a really tough position. So it needs to be this year or, it's do we take it into like the mechanic shed and properly strip it apart, or just add another part back onto it and hope it runs the same still?
Yeah. Hey, I'll be totally fine with a Steelers rebuild. It would be weird to see, but I'd love it. I would love it.
I mean, they need to work out their quarterback situation long term. And
long term,
if I was a Steelers fan, like they tried to fix it with Pickett, but they should have known Pickett wasn't a first round quarterback. It was one of those years that there really wasn't one. But going for the guy, keeping him at home made sense to a point, but like that wasn't the right option. So it's like they need to actually find a quarterback and not just put someone in for a year and hope it works. Which is why I'm surprised they didn't just stick with Fields last year and just see if it worked. Because ultimately, like as much as Russ played well in parts, it was like you've got both of them on board. Like maybe just try the young guy. But it was like they were so desperate to have that winning record again and make it to the playoff like wildcard round. It's like we're maybe not giving ourselves the best chance for a sustainable future here. They need to find a quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try and find it in the league as opposed to drafting. But it's a tough spot to be in when you don't know year on year who your quarterback's going to be, but you've got a load of talent around it.
Yeah.
You want that consistency ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. And then speaking of Rodgers, like where do you see him in like top quarterbacks of all time?
I mean, there's very few that are better than him in terms of the longevity. Like there's going to be this narrative around like he's dropped off towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to be with that Jets stink on it, unfortunately. That he got the injury and he went there and they went all in and it didn't work. But actually last year he didn't play particularly badly.
Yeah,
this
he had a
year,
good ratio.
He's not played particularly badly. Like he played superbly for the Packers for the last few years before he left. And before that, he was one of the most consistent quarterbacks, arguably, of all time. Like, he has to be in that top 10 range, but probably looking higher than just the top 10 range. And I think it's nice in the sense that like Patrick Mahomes is probably already in there with him. So you've seen him compete with someone who is at that level.
Yeah.
You've seen him compete with Brady, who's going to be in that tier. And then you've got the guys like Peyton, you've got Elway, got Breeze. And I think that's where the interesting one comes to me is like who's better out of Rodgers and Breeze. And that's
I remember those debates back in the day.
And that's a tough one to pick now in terms of like towards the back end of the career. Rodgers still won a few MVPs and things like that. And yeah, now he's made these little decisions, but like Breeze's arm really fell off towards the end of it, and he still had that IQ, but he couldn't necessarily get the body to do it. So it's I think he's definitely in that sort of top 10 range. And once you get that high, it's tough to really put someone above somebody else.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's gold jacket, like first ballot, isn't
Oh
he?
yeah,
So.
for sure. Top 10 is interesting. Most people think like it's Brady, then Rodgers, and then the rest, which in my opinion, I feel like it's always Brady, Montana. Like just in terms of greatness, I think it's like Brady, Montana, then after that, I think it's Marino. I think it's Brady, Montana, Marino, then it's Rodgers. Just in terms of like greatness and all around quarterback.
And it's tough when you compare eras because the game's changed.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would already put Mahomes arguably 2 or 3.
Really?
How many Super Bowls has he won? How good has he been every single year? Like it's ridiculous. Like in terms of the consistency and in terms of like getting a team to the final stages as well, which is the quarterback's job to go and win the Super Bowl. So it's like, I love watching Marino footage. Love it. Never like get over that final hump and keep pushing it through. So I think, but it's always subjective when you get to that point. Like once the stats are there and like the tape's there, it's all about what you prefer.
Yes.
In terms of and like which era you grew up on effectively.
Yes.
Like I've got a lot of friends now that follow the game that will say Mahomes is better than Brady because they've grown up on effectively early Mahomes through to now.
Yeah.
And it's like, to be fair, you're entitled to your opinion. If he keeps going for another 10 years and does this, maybe. Like, there's the argument there. Whereas there's other people that will be like, it's Montana. Like, it's Montana. There's people that swear that Peyton was, like, better than Brady.
Yeah.
But Brady
I was one of them.
But Brady had that longevity.
Yeah.
And that Bucks run really helped him with that, where he just seemingly just didn't age and just kept being superb. So, yeah, I think he's up in that conversation. But it's once you're looking at sort of Montana, you're looking at Elway, Marino, and you're saying then there's Aaron Rodgers. I think it's okay just to put them all in a bucket and then probably say, here's Tom Brady and here's like 8 guys that you can just have a discussion about. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mahomes and Brady be in that top 2 bucket together come the end of his career. And it's like, well, then who's the third best underneath him?
Yeah, because the thing about Mahomes that like, and I got flack for this, but the thing about Mahomes is that he always just gets it done no matter what. You know, 3rd and 10, it's AFC Championship game. You need 10 yards, he will get that 11 yards right there.
And that's what Brady did.
Yeah.
Like, and if you look at that Falcons like Super Bowl, that's what Brady did. And yeah, some luck happens and stuff happens. But if you have a quarterback that believes that he's going to do it and there's no doubt, and Mahomes has done it with like the Kelsey, it's not a full fall off, but Kelsey's not been as effective as he has been. He's done it with, they built an offense to throw the ball deeper that everyone gets injured, and he's still making it to the Super Bowl. It's like there's something there to say that, yeah, I think he's doing enough that if he can maintain that, like it's easy. It's the same like LeBron Jordan like conversation in the NBA. Like, oh, but LeBron's still playing, so that people that say he's the best ever are because they're watching him now. And it's like, but actually, if you compare careers, it is like it's whichever one you want to pick ultimately. So I think if Mahomes can keep going to this point for another, like 10 years or so, then you've got to put him up there against Brady. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have very similar sort of Super Bowl numbers at that point as well. So it's like maybe we just put them both up there and then we just admire what they did rather than try and argue about sort of who's the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly. And then even speaking of Tom Brady, like Tom Brady said that like the young quarterback development like isn't as good, and young quarterbacks aren't as good. But I argue that like they're better than they've ever been. Like I remember like Cam Newton when he came in the league, Russell Wilson and RG3. That was like the first time you saw like mobile quarterbacks that can pass and throw and pass and run. And then they also like fill the stat sheet in terms of like getting that like 25 to 30 plus touchdowns. And then now you look at like the rookie quarterbacks now, like insane. They're already like playing like top 5 quarterbacks, and you never saw that back in the day.
I think it's interesting though, because I can see where Brady's coming from in the fact that we've seen some rookies have some really good seasons, and then we've seen them drop off a bit in the second year. So it's like, okay, but have you actually developed, or did you have a really good year? Whereas someone like Drake May, you're seeing a progression point. And actually, I love Drake May coming out of college. I had him as the top quarterback in that, and I can find the receipts to show that. But like, I thought him and Jaden were like 1 and 2, and I picked between them. And actually, those are the two that really have shone out. And it's a shame that Jaden's been injured this year, because he seemed on that Stroud trajectory after his rookie season, that actually he was ready to go, and it felt like he was reading the game better. Yeah, so I just think with Jaden Daniels, it sort of, he seemed better placed for that trajectory than Stroud did necessarily. But Stroud had this all-time rookie year, but he didn't necessarily have the team around him on the offensive line. It didn't really make sense, where it seemed like Washington were building for this push. And actually, that push was dependent on Daniels being there.
Yeah.
I like Mariota as a backup. I don't think he's a bad player. But like, it was dependent on Daniels being there, and that was the trajectory that was going to come. So I can see where Brady's coming from, in the sense that maybe that development, like, it's also forced to happen quicker as well, because a lot of rookies start from the off. They don't get a chance to sit like Rodgers did, like Love did. Like, but actually that's very rare now. Yeah, like, you get a rookie and you throw him into it. Like, poor Cam Ward's just been thrown in with the Titans and just like make it work, and it doesn't really like support development in the same way. So it might thin out the herd in terms of like people that are going to stand up and be counted are going to stand up and be counted. But yeah, I think that back in the day you probably had more like patience with development, but now development needs to happen quicker. But also that's why potentially we see development happen, then we see a drop off, and there's just not consistency. It's not linear. Like, it's going to be up and down, and like Drake May seems to be the antithesis of that, though, and I'm hoping that can continue to go, because he's a joy to watch play at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And like, obviously, as you can see, like, you're already like a real ball knower and everything. So that reminds me, like, you said that like it was like easier to get into the game, like as a British fan than an American fan. Like, explain that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like contrary. It seems like it doesn't make any sense. The way that I phrase it is like, if I want to watch football or soccer over here, I can turn the corner and someone's got an opinion to give me. Someone's going to tell you so-and-so's rubbish. Someone's going to say this team aren't what they're made out to be. Oh, this guy's rubbish. Like, he can't score. He's only scored like 3 goals this year. He's a waste of space. It's like, with the NFL, being in the UK or being in Europe, you're not surrounded by that. So it's been up to me to watch games, form my own opinion, and then find content, find media to understand. So during the pandemic, I really got into like Pro Football Focus. And like, as much as the grading side of things, there's a subjectiveness to it, because you don't know what each play is designed to be. You're only like grading each person's individual effort on that. Like just throwing yourself into the analysis of it and things like that, I wouldn't necessarily do if I was in the States, because I'd already have enough opinions about football that were probably casual and like top line. Whereas I've had to go and find information on football and really throw myself into it. And I've got a journalism background as well, so it gave me something to write about. So I got to do a lot of stuff around that. So like, it was easier for me to become knowledgeable and informed. And it's still opinionated, it's still subjective. There'll be a lot of people that disagree with what I say, but I want people to know that it comes from a place of like throwing myself into the game and really trying to understand it. And I think that one of the prime examples of that is when I watch the Super Bowl, as I said, with my friend Andrew every year. Like, I'm talking about guards pulling on run plays, and I'm like, I love that. I don't think I'd be that fascinated in that if I was like constantly surrounded by American football. But having to like listen to stuff and watch things by myself effectively, and not having many people to talk about when I formed my opinions and formed my way of watching the game and formed my awareness of it, like, I started to find things that I really enjoyed. So now, yeah, I love pulling guards. I love pony sets with 2 running backs. One of the reasons I love watching the Rams play is that I just having as many tight ends on the field as possible. Just love it. I just think it's an art form ultimately when you see some of these plays and how they're designed. And the same with like defensive, when you see some of the stuff that Flores does in the back end, you see some of the blitzes that Bowles throws for the Bucs, and you're like, it is an art form. And I've had to go away and look at that and then gain lots of opinions on that from analysts, pundits, and former players. Whereas if I was born in the States, I'd probably be getting opinions from teammates, friends, classmates, family. And it's like opinions are all valid no matter where they come from. But like, I've had to go and seek out informed opinions, and a lot of those just from my end have been like data and analysis driven. So I feel like they have some credibility to them as well. And it's not someone who's watched a game on Sunday and been like, oh, he was rubbish though. And I got that quite a bit at the Browns-Vikings game. There's a guy behind us that hates Carson Wentz. He was just giving Carson Wentz slander the whole time.
I know, right?
But Carson Wentz just led a game-winning drive at the end, battled through it and played really well in that last drive, and actually had moments where he played quite well, but his body just couldn't do what he wanted it to do. But it was like that was almost the antithesis of my way of watching the sport, where I'm like, these guys are the best in the world. Like Carson Wentz is one of the 40 best quarterbacks in the world at this. He's objectively a very good American football player. He's not trash. It's just tough when you're not at that elite level to make things happen. And if your body's really giving up on you and you've got this injury history, it is difficult.
Yeah.
So I think it's been easier for me to really look at it from a more pragmatic and sort of overarching standpoint to watch the sport as a whole, rather than have lots of opinions coming in from the side of like different players, different coaches, different teams. And like, I don't hate any teams because I haven't ever had the need to hate any teams. So it's nice to be able to watch the sport and like enjoy the whole sport. Whereas, I mean, I'm the worst for it. Like, I'm a Cardiff City fan in football, and I hate Swansea, I hate Bristol City, I hate Bristol Rovers, and that's because I got brought up that that's what you do. It's rivalry games. You hate them. Whereas I know Americans watch the games, and like particularly in the Ravens division, there's a lot of hatred there.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't have that because I'm not surrounded by it growing up. That didn't form my opinions. Like, my opinions were formed in a completely different way. So for me, it's been easier to fall in love with the sport because I've had to fall in love with it by myself and fall in love with different aspects of it that I potentially wouldn't have fallen in love with otherwise. So I think it's easier in the sense that you can form your own opinion easier, but it's harder to find that information and go and source it because you have to be proactive and you have to go and find it yourself. Whereas if you're surrounded by football 24/7, you don't have far to go and find it. So that's where the difficulty comes from if you're not based in the country. Is you just have to put a lot of effort in to work it out and gain that knowledge. But yeah, when you fall in love with something like a sport or a player or a team or whatever it is, it's like you get that sense of like belonging to it. So it's really easy to sort of follow that and gain some knowledge on it and gain some understanding. And that's why like I forever will be grateful to Baker for bringing me into the sport ultimately. And he's younger than me, which makes it even worse. He's like 7 days younger than me, which but ultimately like he brought me into the sport and now I've got friends in the sport. I played the sport in the UK. Like loads of aspects of my life revolve around this in a way. Like my cat has a Baker Mayfield jersey.
That's
like,
crazy.
It's literally like every Sunday, like my missus knows that I'm like, oh, the game's on at this time. I'm gonna have to sit down. So if we're doing any stuff during the day, let's crack it out. Let's get it done.
Yeah, let's get it
like,
done.
If I've got any chores to do, let me know. I'll get them sorted. But I want to sit down at this point to watch this. So it's just become part of like habit for me. It's become part of daily life, whether it's podcasts, whether it's the games, whether it's reading articles, and whether it's just falling in love with college prospects ahead of the draft and being like, oh, this is my guy. And then he goes in the 5th round and being like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm going to hold on to him. So just there's so many areas that are just easy to really like grab onto. And yeah, and I think I've been fortunate in the sense that, yeah, not being surrounded by it growing up means that I've been able to grow up in the sport on my own accord, of my own volition. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity because it means that my opinions are formed differently potentially to other people, but also they're quite measured and they've taken a lot of time to really decide on them. So I've gone from like thinking a certain player was really good to thinking, okay, he's not that great, but actually he does some certain things really well. So that's how opinions change and they get formed over time. But I've been fortunate enough to have that time to kind of work all that stuff out.
Yeah, 100%. So it basically means that like watching like the NFL in England, like you really get that more pure feel. Like it's pure. Like
as long as you're willing to throw yourself into it.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's
really
really
dive in the
easy to
deep
be
end.
a casual fan in the UK because you can just watch the game and then never do anything else to do with NFL, or you can just watch the Super Bowl. And I've got loads of friends that just watch the Super Bowl, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I like it." They've all got like a Brady jersey, and like they all watch Super Bowl, and it's like that's great. If that's how you watch the sport, watch it. Please do, because there will be someone every year in that friendship group or a friend of a friend who watches the Super Bowl and then falls in love with the sport and grows from there. So that's important. But if you want to watch it and form it on like a pure level in this country, you just got to put the hours in. And it sounds bad, but that's also what the NFL is.
Yeah.
Like the players have to put the hours in the classroom. Like if you want to understand it, you've got to put hours in watching the game, listening to opinions, like watch film on YouTube as well. Like watch offensive line breakdowns, watch like what defensive packages are called and why they matter. Like really throw yourself into that. And you'll understand the sport in a way that a lot of people don't have the privilege of understanding it that way because they've just not got that clear space to be able to work it all out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why I like talking to you, man, because like you're just a pure baller. You form your own opinions and you just like, man, you just know ball. Like it just comes down to that.
We just got to run it back, man.
Yeah,
just run it back. We haven't even touched enough Baker today. So.
100%. Yeah. So like just I'm letting everyone know this is just a part 1 of maybe part 99. So
and if someone wants to fly me over to the States to watch the game, just like I'm not saying I'll do like horrible things, but there's a lot of things that I would do for that.
Yeah, 100%, man. We need to get this man on a Baker Mayfield game, and we got to get this man on a Buccaneers sideline, man, because he could be the offensive coordinator right now. Who knows, man? But we got to make that happen, man. So, yeah, I appreciate you for your time. Definitely gonna have a part 2 with this for later. But yeah, hopefully, Baker Mayfield wins that MVP. Joe Flacco wins another comeback player of the year, and then the Baltimore Ravens win the Super Bowl. So.
I mean, we'll stick on the first one, and then we'll see if the rest of it ever happens.
Yeah, we'll see, man. So I appreciate it for your time, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Yo, I need some brain like Bay, let me see how you thinking. Me, I was sat there broke like you, seeing the clock just ticking. I'm kinda bitch, I be